Hello, everybody. David here. And it is Saturday, March 5th, 2022. Ooh-wee. Well, I'm going to keep this very short because it could turn into a very long video. But this has been probably the most challenging year I've had since the year my mother died. Real tough year. So I was down in Mexico. I went down to Mexico after the election in 2020. The years are like melting together now with everything going on. And down there 6 months and was looking to extend my visa. And that's a whole different story. Maybe I'll talk about. And my father was in an assisted care facility and he started having some issues. And the place where we had him, when we put him there, they had promised that they'd be able to transition with him as he aged and his physical skills deteriorated. Well, and he moved there in 2018. So he was there about 3 years when he started to really drop. And either their corporate policy changed or they lied just to get you in. And now they couldn't handle him because he was a big guy and they just couldn't, the people there, anybody who's going through this, you see it, these places can't even get people to work there. And when they do, they're there a month and they're gone. You're like, what happened to Jill? Oh, she's gone. So they use a lot of these temp agencies now. And yeah, people coming and going, and there's no consistency. So you can train somebody in how you want something to done. Well, they're gone, and then you have to train them all over again. And that's a major problem for anybody going into assisted care facilities or nursing homes. Real big problem, staffing issues. And so if you have loved ones in there, you really have to stay on. If you never check in on your family members, well, they're probably getting shit on and you don't know it because you're not there paying attention. So you don't have to be there every day, I suppose, but yeah, if you think anything about family, you have to do your duty and take care of it. So long story short, when I got that call from one of my sisters, I was like, oh no. So I booked a flight and was back in a couple of days after I found out. And so I had to break my lease down there, or my agreement with them, and come back. And that started a cascade of issues that it's like they say, when it rains, it pours. And basically, what is this, March? So what is that, about 10 months? So it's been it's been 10 months of just straight out go. And I basically, with this whole YouTube thing shutting me down, it lost the whole zeal for doing these things. I really didn't care about doing videos or fighting the powers that be with everything going on. So now things are bottoming out, we'll say. And now I have to make a decision as to what I'm going to do. And sounds simple, doesn't it? But it's kind of like if you're floating down the Mississippi River, right? Try swimming upstream and you forget about it. You might as well just sit back and just let it take you. And that's basically what I'm doing right now until I get everything finished. And hopefully don't get punched in the face. Hopefully I can bob and weave and dodge and navigate through this. And to be honest with you, I really don't have anything left to say as far as where I travel. And, I did these videos as a documentation. And I know when I watch videos on Rumble or YouTube or anywhere else, me personally, maybe I'm different. I personally dislike it very much when somebody has a camera in their face the whole time and they're talking about something. I don't want to see your face. I want to see what you're talking about, right? But it's clear that people on these channels prefer to see somebody's face, especially if it's a good-looking woman or a good-looking guy, I guess. I prefer to turn the camera around. And then the other thing is where I go, a lot of places where I go, I'm not going to be walking around with a selfie stick that draws attention to you. Some of the places I go to, it's the last thing you want to do. And, number one, it's a lot easier to steal whatever you have on the end of your camera. And number two, it just draws the wrong kind of attention for me. I try to be, I actually made a vest where I could put my camera right in there and it would just film. And I used that for a little while and it was great because people just talk to you normally. They don't get self-conscious about a camera because in certain parts of the world, people are very self-conscious about a camera. So there's a lot of things I could talk about, but to be quite honest with you, it's who am I? Like I said, I didn't do this channel for subscribers or for views or thank God I never got to the point where, I know some people whose channels blew up and they travel and now they're recognized and hassled, and plus it becomes a full-time job. I'm very grateful that never happened. And so I don't have to worry about that. Let's see, is there anything else? Well, there's a lot going on with the markets in the world. Oh boy, this is a complicated one. Should I go over this? Oh boy. I think I'll save that for a separate video talking about the whole Ukraine, Russia, and the hypocrisy of the people in the West and how it's okay to shut down Russia for taking what they determine defensive actions. Whether we agree with it or not, it doesn't matter. That's what they determine it to be. And here we are going halfway around the world to take over countries and kill their leaders. And there seems to be no. See, this is all karma, man. It's all karma. And the fact that people in the United States and other countries are profiting from that negative energy, from that evil, it's going to come around. It's going to come around. Don't think it isn't. It's eventually going to boomerang. And I think the time is getting closer. And I think that one of the real negative signs, one of the things that surprised me was that Putin used kinetic warfare, which is, live fire, right? Where physical violence against other people. And what that means is if anybody's been following this, that the years melt together, but maybe 10 years ago, 10 years ago, Russia and China and the BRICS countries, right? Brazil, Russia, India, Iran, China, and South Africa They created their alternate system to Swiss. And I forget what it's called now. It's actually on my website. I put up a story about it years ago, probably 2016. So that's 6 years ago now. And what that meant is those countries were tired of the United States using the US dollar as a weapon, where the US could go in and say, hey, you can't play anymore. Boom, timeout. Who are we? Right? We're one country. Now I live in the United States, so I benefit from it. And I realize there's not a lot we can do to fight this, because you'll lose. And look at Julian Assange and all the others who have been killed or jailed for nothing. And then the news spins it that these people did something evil, and the US citizen buys it up. Thank you for keeping us safe. Thank you. Thank you. Those evil people, kill them, right? We just have evil people as our politicians. Government has grown so large that it's not going to change. I think that it's very possible, I'm not saying it's going to happen, very possible that our leaders, or the powers that be, whoever's controlling the show, they escalate this. So, and a lot of people probably don't remember, but if you go back and look at the stock market back on September 10th, 2001, the NASDAQ had dropped 75 or 80%. And then 9/11 came, markets closed, and then there was a rally after that, and it's been a rally ever since, pretty much, with a couple blips in between. And that's when really that's when the US really died, 9/11. That's when I think things changed forever. And it's been downhill ever since. Just most people probably don't even care, don't even notice. But if anybody's ever read Ernest Hemingway, The Sun Also Rises, there's a famous quote on there. And it's two characters interacting, and they're like, how did you go bankrupt? And he goes, two ways, gradually, and then all at once. I think that's the quote. Like basically, and I put a video 2 years ago now on that Peak Prosperity. The people at Peak Prosperity put together a video on compounding. If you don't know it, you should go look at it. It drives home how quickly these things fall apart, quicker than you can react. And that compounding video really is something you need to understand, because it's literally drives home that you're better off being 1 year early rather than 1 day late. And we're there. And now that, I mean, I was prepared, and now I'm thrown back out. I'm naked now, pretty much. I need to figure out what the heck I'm going to do pretty quick, if anything. So, but yeah, but in all chaos, there's opportunity for those people who are not going to stick their head in the sand and not going to let fear take control of things. And you don't want to overreact, right? But you want to react when the time is right. So that's all I have to say on that subject. So I didn't get into, I'll have to remember this, but there were some trades on Russian stocks last week. And I just find it, I've been watching that whole scenario develop, and it just drives home. It drives home that the criminals are still in charge. They'll be, and that's the only thing that makes me nervous, is the criminals are in charge, and they're not going to give up their advantage, their power willingly. Why would they? They're in the cat seat. They're going to take it down. They're not going to give it up. Back when the Soviet Union fell, the military was ordered to fire on their citizens, and the military said no. And that was the end of the Soviet Union. And then they started 10 years of chaos in that country. And when Boris Yeltsin ended up coming in, and that's a whole another story as well. But this country, they'll fire on the citizens, absolutely, 100%. And they'll do what they're told, because in this country, we don't unite that way. And it goes all the way back. If you look after World War I, they sent the troops in on the World War I veterans who were camped out in Washington, D.C., who wanted their benefits that were promised to them. And MacArthur, Eisenhower, and Patton all took part in the slaughter of World War I veterans back in 1920, maybe, plus or minus a few years, because the war ended in 1918. So I think that's a good guess. You can research it. And they were happy to do it. I saw a movie a long time ago, and it was based on that. And back then they had the cavalry, right? And there were 3 or 4 guys who were ordered by whoever was supposed to be in leading this platoon of horses. And 4 guys said, "I'm not doing this." And the commander said, "You get back to the base, I'll deal with you later." He didn't shoot them right then and there, but he ordered them back. They were court-martialed, and they were all demoted back to privates or whatever the basic unit was back then, basic rank. And it fast forwarded to a couple of years later, and they were in Texas now. And they were in charge of the horses. That was the cavalry. And it talked about how the US military had gone away from horses and was now in armor, tanks, right? But it was the transition. The cavalry became the armor and the military. And that's how Patton was in cavalry, ended up in armor. And they were ordered to slaughter all those horses. They were ordered to bring them to a spot, dig a ditch basically, and shoot them all and bury them. And they thought of the horses like a lot of people in armed forces and in police think of their dogs now. They think of them as, like in some states, if you kill a police dog, it's the same as killing a police officer. You get hit with some of the same charges, as crazy as that is. Maybe not so crazy in those states. But so they obviously disobeyed again, and they ended up taking the horses, and I don't think they had a plan. I don't know why they just didn't go to Mexico. It's right there on Texas. But for whatever reason, the army then started chasing them. And I think they tried to go to Mexico, and the military put a blockade there because they thought that's where they were going. And they did a U-turn, and they went from Texas all the way up to Canadian border, up through either Minnesota or Michigan or the Dakotas, one of those. And the military was right behind. Today, you'd have no shot because the drones and the satellites would track every movement. But back then, you could take thousands, tens or hundreds of thousands of horses and not be found. And they get to the border, and the Canadian Mounties were ordered to keep them from coming into the border. And Canada was a free country, I guess. And actually, they weren't even a country back then. They were a commonwealth or a province for England, the UK. And so they get to the border, and the Mounties are like, "Screw this, come on over." And they all went. And I think all the guys went over except for one in the movie anyways. And I don't think it said what happened to him. He wasn't shot. I'm sure he went to prison. But that was a very interesting story. And those type of people are demonized by our country today. Nobody seems to have the courage. And if they do, they're ostracized and isolated and made to seem like they're bananas. If you remember, there was a Marine, he was a colonel or a lieutenant colonel, who spoke up about what happened in Afghanistan. Won't hear from him again. Probably. I don't know. So there's a lot of potential danger out there right now. It truly has been a crazy couple of years, and the world is never going to be the same. Not in my lifetime, never going to be the same. Because what you see right now is, COVID's gone, right? You don't even hear about it. Because, and you remember how the terrorism jihadists, and they started making this transition back into Russia about 5 years ago. Because what they do is they always need a boogeyman, whether it's Russia, China, terrorism, COVID, drugs. There's got to be a boogeyman because they need to keep you scared. They need to keep you focused on the fear so that their hand can go around and reach into people's pockets and take their money, take their freedom, take their wealth. And it's obvious that Canada and Australia are not thought much about by the powers that be, because who would want to live in Australia and Canada over the last couple of years with what's going on up there? I am not in those countries, but from what I see, it doesn't look like too great a place to be. And the US is probably watching and evaluating, just like China right now is watching and evaluating what's going on. They're watching what's happening to Russia right now. Don't think they're not. And China and Russia already have their replacement to the Swiss system built up. And I don't know if I covered it in the article because it was so many years ago, but the one thing I remember is when Russia and China announced that they were launching their alternative to the Swiss system, every country in the world was screaming to get in with them. Us, pick us, pick us. Every country except for the United States and the UK were the only two who said, I want no part of it, if I remember correctly. Everybody else wanted in. So I wonder how many countries, when the line is actually drawn in the sand, it's coming. It's coming. China goes into Taiwan, or China and Russia with North Korea take South Korea. That's the wild card that nobody's talking about. You lose South Korea, you lose Taiwan. Where's all the technology coming from, guys? We don't make anything in the United States anymore. You think you have chip shortages now? You think you have cell phone issues now? Where are all the cell phones made? Computers. Anything. Think of anything. So you hear this saying, grabbing a tiger by the tail. Well, grab a tiger, grab a bear, grab any animal, put them in a corner. And you think attacking, if somebody was attacking you physically with a stick, okay, you'd defend yourself. Somebody starts trying to rob you to take your money, maybe you'd give up the money. Some people would defend themselves. Some people come on the property and try to take something. Some people are going to defend themselves. Look at everything we're doing to Russia right now. So they're obviously trying to provoke a reaction. They're not trying to create a peaceful solution. We had the Cuban Missile Crisis because Russia was putting nuclear missiles in Cuba. Russia doesn't want nuclear missiles in Poland or the Ukraine. So we have to think of the other side. What are we doing? We can't always get our way, especially in this world, because now the United States is becoming less and less important in this world. If it wasn't for the US dollar being the world's reserve currency, go visit the Philippines, go visit Mexico, go visit any of these other countries, and you would have the same middle class gone. You would have everybody poor and this few people rich. And that's what's happening to this country. And it's going to happen. Count on it. Count on it. Oh, but I own property. Yeah. Can you keep it? Yeah. At what point do taxes and expenses drop? Create, I mean, all the elderly people, right? Were losing their property because they couldn't afford to hold on to it. Unless you have unlimited wealth, there's a number that you can't cross. So, and you're not, remember George Carlin, you're not in the big club. You're not going to be included. You're going to be left behind. You are going to be the fuel in their Ponzi scheme. You're not going to be treated as an equal. So going to be very interesting times. And if this goes down as badly, yeah, I mean, I also did a discussion with one of the videos with Dan on the Deagle report about 2 years ago. And they forecast, this was before COVID. This was in 2019. So 3 years ago. They forecasted that the population of the United States of America in 2025 would be less than 100 million. Yep, think about it. If we can't get food, we can't get energy, the grid goes down, all sorts of things could happen. Another virus that they release, a war, nuclear bombs, right? Then, which it probably won't be nuclear bombs because the rest of the world's populations pretty much remain stable. If I remember correctly, it's just the United States. We have a huge elderly population and we have a lot of young people, and they require special care and special assistance to survive. They would not have survived in the days of the Spartans. They couldn't carry their weight. And when people are so busy trying to survive, they're not going to be able to worry about grandpa in the nursing home, or, the little baby who's a year old and can't move on their own. I mean, so maybe the mother and the child die together. It could be really bad. We could lose 1/3 to 1/2 of our population within 30 to 60 days. Easily. That's how quick, I mean, we could lose our distribution systems in the matter of a couple of weeks. Look at what happens during a hurricane or a storm when is coming. The supermarkets are empty within a few hours. And without a distribution system set up, they're not getting filled. And we have shortages right now. Everywhere I go, you see for hire. I mean, I don't know what we do. Do we have a rapture and all these people disappeared? I don't know. It's insane. So doesn't mean we have to change everything immediately, but if you haven't been prepared before, and what is the answer? Well, the answer is nobody knows. And that's why you need to have as many bases covered as possible. So that it's kind of like insurance, right? Is most of the time, the money you spend in insurance is technically a waste because it was never utilized. You spent X amount of thousands of dollars on your house insurance or your car insurance or your health insurance, and you never used it. It's gone. And that's what you have to do with these other types of insurance, is maybe everything will be okay. But instead of going out to dinner or going to the movies or going to a concert or buying something you don't need, or maybe sell something you don't need, because all of us have tons of crap we no longer need. And I know because I just went through selling everything. I sold everything I own, except for what I carry on my back. And I kept my car for now. And the only reason I kept my car is because I had to stay here for now. But that's going to change, maybe. And then you have to decide what you need to, if things go down, and have a backup plan. I mean, if it goes to all out war, I mean, who knows? I mean, we're toast. But look at what's going on. The dollar probably is going to, well, I have a whole theory on that as well, which would take too long to explain here. And I'm going to try to take advantage of that theory if I can. We'll see. But the whole point is not everything that you spend on these type of things is an investment in terms of where you're expecting a huge return on investment, right? Like when you buy like an ounce of silver, you're not expecting silver to go to $500 an ounce and be like, oh, I'm rich. No, you're doing that so that if things start to come apart, if the dollar starts, look at what happened to the Russian ruble recently, right? That could happen to the dollar overnight. It could happen on Monday, right? The system, things shut down on Friday, markets close, and then markets open again Sunday night in Asia, Sunday night US time. It's Monday morning over there. And it could, and by then it's too late. Markets are closed, man. You can't. Is that going to happen? I don't know. So I have a lot of videos on here talking about what my philosophy is. And that's all I can do is put out what I've been doing, and then unfortunately, I know everybody's going to say, well, I have a family, I have obligations. Yeah, I understand. Sometimes that puts you right in front of the train and you're not going to make it. That's the reality. It's reality. So, and that's why more important than ever, okay, you have to realize that none of us are going to make it eventually. Whether you're 50, 30, 5, 95, we all leave. And when you leave here, you hope that Jesus says, David, welcome. Peace.